Hi, I'm Femi OK. Thanks for watching the stream. Today we're going to have a very difficult conversation. We are looking at prejudice against women around the world. So despite movements like Me Too, Time's Up, Not One More, how much improvement have we seen around the world considering what people think about women? Zero improvement. The reason I know this is because of a recent report by United Nations Development Programme. So, looking around the world, 9 out of 10 people have some kind of bias against women. Let's take a closer look at some of these findings. 49% believe men make better political leaders than women. 43% of people surveyed say that men are more effective business leaders than women. And then this one, 25% believe it is justified for a man to beat his wife. So many challenges facing women worldwide. What do we do about that? You are part of today's conversation. Thanks for watching.
These biases have consequences in our daily life, in our access to work, education, and our physical integrity. A woman is killed in Argentina every 29 hours from an NGO, La Casa del Encuentro, that is the NGO that has been counting women that are being killed in Argentina since 2008. A woman is like a woman per day. This is the consequence of these biases.
Let's meet our guest. Tasneem Mirza is a policy specialist who authored the UN Development Programme's Gender Social Norms Index. She is in New York. Farzana Barry is a human rights activist and former director of the Centre of Excellence in Gender Studies. She is in Islamabad. She joins us from the Pakistan capital. And Wessel van der Berg is a global coordinator of the Men Care campaign at Equimundo, an organisation that engages men and boys in efforts towards gender equality. He's in Cape Town. Hello, everybody. Ooh, we're going to be doing some heavy lifting today. All right, your mood on a scale of 1 to 10 regarding bias against women in the world, considering you know what you know. 1 is, why am I even here? 10 is, good job, world. We're respecting women. We're giving them opportunities. Tasneem, your scale, instantly. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's one of shock. It's unbelievable, the numbers that are so stark. 9 out of 10 people show some sort of bias. So for me, it's an alarm.
All right. Farzana, 1 to 10, what's your mood right now?
Yeah, I think it is a bit, it's a bit shocking, you know. I know that this whole pace of moving towards this whole notion of gender equality has been slow, but I think this research is a little bit of also unsettling for me, that thinking that this is such a huge number of people who still subscribe to, and to have those kind of gender biases. So yeah, it is a bit depressing to read this report.
Vessel, what's your mood right now? You've been doing this work for years, not you, but many colleagues and many cohorts as well. What's your mood today?
Yeah, no, I share Tasneem and Farzana's opinion, Femi, but I would want to say that I don't want to fix my mood at 3 or 4, but maybe 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5. Hopefully we can see some progress in some places.
Oh, good. That's encouraging. I'm going to start with some of the people who are helping us understand what are the challenges around the world. So I'm going to bring in Joan. Joan is from the Gafasha Girls Foundation, and she just lays out what the problems are from her perspective. Let's have a listen.
According to UNICEF, 129 million girls are out of school, and most of these girls are coming from families that are unable to support their education, and most of these girls are dropping out of school because of the negative social and cultural norms that surround girls' education. The belief that girls are supposed to be in the bedrooms, the belief that girls are supposed to be in the kitchen, the belief that girls' education is a wastage of money.
Tasneem, I see you nodding. This idea of where girls are supposed to be, that's the challenge. If we start at the home and biasing the home, we start with the family and what you think your girls should be doing, Tasneem. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, these biases are inherent in people. They define and they end up defining women's roles at home in terms of the burden of unpaid care work, but also outside of home, in economic spheres, in political spheres. The prejudices we have against women, it's ending up affecting their education, their prosperity at work, as well as potential for their leadership positions. It's showing up everywhere. And this is of great concern.
Vessel, tell us about the work you've been doing in the area of unpaid care work, because I don't want to just depress our audience. I do want to give them an idea of the work that's being done and how you can change the status quo.
Sure, Femi. And, my reaction to the report is very much that we can see how linked the personal in the home space is to the political, especially in terms of women's leadership, and how that association with care work in the home is still preventing, the biases linked to that are still preventing women to stepping into the leadership roles that we would like to see. The work that we do at Men Care and Equimundo is to exactly shift the engagement of men in unpaid care work. Our goal has been for a few years that men do half of the unpaid care work in the world. And, I'm actually, this report reminds me that I might not see that in my lifetime, but I hope that my daughter and perhaps my son see that in their lifetimes.
I want to share a group called Banda Barejo, and they are doing work, and you're doing work with them to Vessel, you explain, because then I'm going to show a little bit of video, but explain what they're doing first of all, because the video is fascinating. What does Banda Barejo do?
Sure. Thank you, Femi. So the report, the UNDP report, actually refers to Program H, which is a H for hombre in Spanish. It refers to intervention with groups of men to shift their norms in terms of gender equality, their support for gender equality. Banda Barejo is an adaptation of a similar program called Program P, which is focused on fatherhood and men's engagement in unpaid care work and antenatal health.
Right.
And it was implemented by our partner in Rwanda called RUMREC. And the Banda Barejo evaluations, the initial randomized control trial and the most recent follow-up, were so encouraging because it did show that even though we don't see the numbers at scale like we want to, at least at in a micro level, with small groups that you can work with, you can shift attitudes towards gender equality, towards the positive. We saw men's
let me show
for gender equality improve.
Vessel, let me show
Yes,
our audience what
sure.
you're talking about, because once you see it, you'll go, oh, that's what they're doing.
Yes.
Let's have a
Exactly.
look.
Thank you.
We're changing how men think about caring for family members and what is a woman's job.
And reducing violence.
Oh, right, okay. And reducing violence, says Vessel. Let's have a look.
Banda Barejo is a gender transformative program which engages men in active fatherhood and caregiving in maternal, newborn, and child health in the prevention of violence against women and children. Rigorous evaluation has shown that the approach produces long-term positive impacts in the life of the couples who participated.
Fazana, I would like to talk to you about that investment in young women, in girls, in the family. Making that investment, because not everywhere is there universal education for all kids. So if you've got to choose between whether you're going to spend money on your little boy or money on your little girl, what do? I'm going to bring in Osai, who talks about that dilemma for some families, and then come off the back with your experience in Pakistan. Here's Osai first of all.
Many girls might not get a chance to go to school in Africa if families have to use their limited resources to send their children to school. They would often choose boys in preference over girls. Governments can do a lot better in improving this by giving incentives to families to send their daughters to school, by also ensuring that girls can complete at secondary and university level by ensuring that they have access to digital resources. This would involve investing in infrastructure that would enhance digital learning.
Right. I think what we need to understand that why people are having such strict gender norms, they continue to subscribe to, and they feel that investing in girls' education is not going to beneficial as much as if they invest that kind of resources on men. And I think if you really think this whole notion of sexual domain of labor, when there's clearly is a public and private divide, and this concept that the women are actually their primary roles are as mothers, as wives, within the arena of home, while the men are the one who's going to be the bread earners and who's going to be in the public sphere, So people basically subscribe to this whole notion of sexual domain of labor, and then this rationale is that, okay, investing, because especially in subcontinent, I would say, when we feel, okay, so women are not going to do any job and they're not going to earn money, they are not the bread earner. So the rationale is that if there are less resources, obviously the families make a rational choice by investing more in boys' education. If you look at Pakistan, for example, the situation in Pakistan, where still we have, unfortunately, our state does not actually invest on education. We are spending still less than 2% of our GDP on education. 25 million children are out of school, and out of like 60% are actually female children. So I think this is because still the opportunity cost, to sending girls to school is much higher, because the girls are also, while they're staying at home, they are looking after their siblings. They're doing domestic
so what's the answer to that? Some of that answer is we have a way to connect kids digitally. So maybe they're not going to school, but they can still get an education. So we understand that not everybody's going to pay for a little girl to go to school. But what else is the answer? It's not just the problem. What's the answer here?
The answer is obviously, I think there is kind of a more realization, that the women's education is not only that it's the fundamental right of the girls to, or women to have education, but how it is actually a multiplier, how
Right.
it is impact on other development goals in terms of, so it is not beneficial only to women themselves, but to the entire society. So I think that realization.
Okay. Sure. Farzana, let me just bring Tasneem in. Tasneem, go ahead. What did you want to add?
Absolutely. Exactly as Farzana said, that if we're not investing in women, then it's not only women who lose out in terms of their independence, their prospects, and their agency, but society as a whole is losing out. And we talk quite a bit about this report. And the other point related to education, we were just saying, is that governments can make policies, say mandatory education for boys and girls, but still the social norms matter. If people choose from their families not to send their girl child to school, that's going to have an impact. And that's exactly what the report is trying to say, is that besides what we are doing in terms of policies and interventions at the national level, what really matters is the social context, the social norms, and the biases people hold. If you look around the world today, in terms of tertiary education, men and women are at par in many parts of the world, but still there's a huge gender pay gap. In many cases, women are earning much less than men.
Tasneem, I'm so glad you said that. Let me just pause for a moment, because we do want to go into the world of work. Education for me is like the universal vaccine for everything. Once you're educated, what can stop you? But I want to go into the world of work as well. Carl William Marston says, equal pay for equal work. That would be nice, right? So as we look closer into the labour market globally and how women are faring, I'm going to bring in Tasneem, Gayatri Murthy, who talks about stereotypes and how that dictates what women can do. And I'm going to get you to continue with your line of thought.
So even when women overcome tremendous odds to work, gender norms determine the kinds of work they can do and the experiences they can have. And this remains true even in new forms of digital entrepreneurship and gig economy jobs, where women face tremendous lack of opportunity and even lack of safety because of their gender. And in fact, new kinds of innovation happening in this space, embedded finance that connects these workers to savings, credit, and insurance, largely leaves the needs of women out.
Absolutely. If I fully agree with the aspects you brought into the picture. And if you look at data on education, as I was just saying, in 57 countries where women are more educated than men, there's a 39% pay gap. So that tells something. If you look at the health sector, for example, 70% of professionals, doctors and nurses, are women. But as you go up managerial positions, they're only 25%. If you look at heads of institutions, of medical institutions, that's only 5%. So even when women are gaining so much insights and experiences from these professions, we are not bringing them in leadership positions and to the decision-making table. So there are prejudices and biases that women face.
I mean, that's just such a simple question, but why? It's obvious that women are well-educated and smart and able to do high-level jobs. What's the problem, Tasneem?
You know, one of the interesting things I see in the data is when we disaggregate the data by gender, male and female, and we look at biases, we see that it's not only men who have biases against women, but also women who have biases against women.
I knew you were going to say that. Yes. Yes. Vessel, go ahead. Let me share the conversation with Vessel. Vessel, go ahead. Your face was saying something.
No, and you know, in that video about Banda Bereho, you might have noticed that it was women and men going through the intervention together. I just wanted to bring in one fact from the State of the World's Fathers report, Femi, which is that the vast majority of the parents in our respondent category, it was 17 countries, felt that sons as well as daughters should be taught to do care work. And we found this as a very positive sign of change. So when we speak about education, there's formal education and preparing for the world of paid work, but there's also the education that happens at home. And that's where we can teach sons and boys that care work is also their work. Our respondents in the State of the World's Fathers report overwhelmingly agreed with that statement. And that was really encouraging for us to see.
Yeah. All right. So, yes, Fazana, go ahead.
I'd like to just also bring another dimension, especially in the context of Pakistan. I think we're still battling here in terms of what kind of education, you know. So if you look at our textbooks, which are still reproducing, you know, gender biases. So it's not only, you know, like it's important to have education, but what kind of education, what is the quality of education, what is the content of education. You know, if the educational textbook continue to reproduce gender biases, racial biases, biases against, you know, other minority religions and all that. So I think that is also very important, especially I could say that in Pakistan we still are battling with education departments, looking at our doing the gender analysis of our textbooks and ensuring, as you rightly said, that, you know, we have to show kind of the images when the men are also kind of, you know, in roles, you know, which are supposedly very feminine kind of. So how the men can also do domestic work, which is I think what I want you to point out, like, okay, I think it's equally important that we see that what kind of education we are providing to our children.
I'm so glad that you said that, because Sahani Jalota spoke to us earlier about how stereotypes then make it quite difficult for women to break out of what they're expected to do. What are they expected to do in the workplace? This is how Suhani put it. Let's have a listen.
So let's just talk about women getting into the labor force. Well, very few women in India are working at all because of the double shift that they have to serve, and they have to take care of housework and childcare, which is disproportionately on them more than in any other country in the world today. Women have to end up choosing part-time, flexible type of work where the work is close to their house, so they can actually come home and visit their children when they need to, drop their children to school and come back. So they need workplaces that are flexible with all of these needs.
All right, so according to UNDP, prejudices against women worldwide have not changed in the last decade, but some work has changed. So for that, we go to Zimbabwe and women mining, and this report is by Haro Matassa. Have a look.
This isn't an ordinary mine in Zimbabwe. Only women work here, women like Patina Makupa. 3 years ago, she was struggling to look after her children while working as a farm labourer.
Mining is better than growing tomatoes, onions and other vegetables. I used to sell vegetables, but the money was very little. Now I'm earning a bit more and I can send my children to school.
So, Vessel, you're sitting in South Africa. Zimbabwe is in southern Africa. Mining is big in South Africa. Do you have women miners yet?
Yes, we do, in fact. Yes, the mining sector is investing in women's empowerment significantly. I do think, speaking about the workplace, Femi, that paternity leave, parental leave, and improvements in payments for maternity leave are two of the levers that we have seen from MenCare that do make a difference. If we can get workplaces to provide more time for parents of all genders to spend time with their children, that would normalize the value of caregiving, and that would also mean that women have more space in the workplace to participate in paid work.
Let's talk about representation, guests. And as we do that, I'm going to bring up some thoughts here from our audience who are watching. I want instant reactions from you. Very quick, all right? So Kate says, in 2023, we shouldn't still be having an argument about women/men as equal beings. Tasneem, immediate response in 30 seconds or less. Go ahead.
Absolutely, it's shocking, and a lot needs to be done in terms of how we present women and men in the media. A lot of times women are presented as persons who will take care of the home, and we see this in the data too. Countries that have the higher gender biases, women spend as much as 6 times more in unpaid care work at home.
Okay, all right, that was your instant answer, because I need an instant answer now from Vessel. Vessel on YouTube. I think women have taken way more than they deserve. I think if we are being fair, we should start talking about men's rights. Vessel.
So we have been speaking about men's rights, and particularly men have been talking about men's rights for decades. I think we should expand the zone and think about everybody's rights. That's a very clear reaction from my side there.
And also, you're not representing all the men in the world, by Vessel. That is not your role today.
And I have to say that on the care work, we do see in some surveys that there is an increased contribution of men to care work, which is good to see as a positive sign as well.
I want to go to Pakistan again, and this time via some video, because this shows to me that the movement to support women, to get equal rights for women, the feminist movement, it's still quite young, which is the point that Anila Ashraf, who's a journalist, makes. Let's have a look.
The women's movement is not very old. We have a lot of problems in our region. We started the Women's March in 2020, during which we faced a lot of difficulties. The time has come that we should start bringing changes. Women should be given equal rights and provided education and health facilities.
Farzana, gender studies was your expertise. How would you describe where we are right now? What's the hope?
I think, first of all, I must say that women's movement is not very new in Pakistan. I think women have been struggling ever since Pakistan came into being, that is in 1947. It's a constant struggle. Yes, this movement, I think this conversation is picking up in Pakistan in terms of gender equality. And so I think as per the gender equality discourse is concerned, it has been appropriated by the state. I think there's a lot of talk about gender equality. Gender study is creating kind of a knowledge, also evidence-based, knowledge, which is also now influencing our policies. The problem I think we still have in our part of the world is in terms of implementation. I think the gender commitments it gets evaporated, when it comes to putting the resources in terms of implementation. But I think the hope in South Asia, I feel that women are actually pushing the boundaries, and in every field, they are coming out and they are excelling in those fields. However, I feel that the way our societies and our economic systems are organized, a lot of women are still very much, in terms of workspaces, like mostly women are working in the informal sector of economy. It's not women are not working. I think every woman in Pakistan, like when they're doing domestic work, for example, it is an unpaid domestic work, but they are the worker. And when you look at women like in the formal and the informal sector of economy, they are very much, very much
Thank
active.
you, Farzana. You have the last word in this discussion. Let me show our audience something here on my laptop. Have a quick look here. This is the report that Tasneem was part of. She was one of the authors of this report. Look at the animation, gender inequality. I hope that in 10 years' time, I wonder if that animation will be a little bit different. Thank you on YouTube for your comments and your questions. Thank you, Tasneem, Farzana and Vessel. I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.